Dr. Krieg, Dr. Ron Paul has really led the fight to end the Fed. What do you think of this, and what do you think America's best remedy is?
I love Dr. Ron Paul. I think he's really a wonderful, wonderful man. He's, of course, absolutely right. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913. It was followed by the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve Act was written by Paul Wortman. The Federal Reserve Act created a banking monopoly. The banking monopoly is run by Rothschild-influenced or controlled banks in the United States. It's an international syndicate consisting of the Rothschild banks in Frankfurt, Germany, London, England, Vienna, Austria, and their various affiliates in Zurich and in the United States, Citibank, J.P. Morgan Chase. Harriman Brothers, which is a very special and very interesting case, is the largest private bank in the United States and is run by the order. They also control the Yale University, what is it called? The
Skull and Bones?
the endowment fund is run by the Harriman Brothers. In any event, these banks essentially control the American economy. If you suffered the delusion to think that the American Congress or the American president has any control over our banking, let me dispel that quickly. The 12 Federal Reserve banks and their controlling agents control the entire American economy. They control money, they control the supply of money, they control the interest rates, they control the national debt, they control the interest on the national debt, everything, A to Z. Nobody does anything without asking the Miss Yellen, who is the new Jewish head of the Federal Reserve Bank. The board of governors of the Federal Reserve has always been Jewish. The governor of the head of the bank has been Jewish for I think 24 years now, or 25 years, I don't know, maybe 30. And they control the finances of our country. People have to realize that. You can't influence Congress. Congress has no control over this. The only way that we can save this country is to eliminate the Federal Reserve System. We have to shut it down. That will take some doing, and it will be very, very difficult to do. It's been done before. Andrew Jackson in what year was it? I don't recall, 18 something, in the beginning, early 1800s, shut down the U.S. Bank, which was run by the Biddle family in Philadelphia. And it was very, very, very nasty. I tell you, the Biddles had loaned money to about half the congressmen. And what they told them is if they voted to shut the bank down, Biddle would call every loan and would essentially bankrupt all the members of Congress that had outstanding loans with Biddle. Andrew Jackson succeeded. The people backed him. He had some very funny mottos in his second term in regards to the bank. He said, he wanted the bank returned to the congressional control, where it was from 18 something until 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created. So there's no question in my mind but that America would be better off without a Federal Reserve System. The whole idea of the Federal Reserve System when it was set up was that it would prevent wild market fluctuations, that it would stabilize the markets. It's an absolute lie. It was created in 1913. The biggest market collapse we had was in 1929, just a few years after they created it. It was manipulated. It was done on purpose, as was the 1980 collapse, and the half a dozen collapses between 1980 and 1929. These collapses are orchestrated so that the bankers can monopolize the markets, increase their power, destroy the competition, which they did very well in the Clinton administration. If we think about it, in the Clinton administration, over 900 banks were shut down. They were all smaller private banks, basically state banks, that competed with the Federal Reserve, and they were able to absolve all those banks, and guess who paid for it? You did, the U.S. taxpayers. They paid over $1 trillion in taxes in order for the big banks to take over the small banks. And then when the collapse came at the end of the Bush administration, they did this quantitative easing, and they bailed the banks out repeatedly for $800 million and $850 million, which was the money, by the billion, that was the money without interest. When you figure the compounded interest in on the payback, you're talking about $1 trillion in both bailouts. That's $2 trillion in just bank bailouts. Remember all those shovel-ready projects that the president promised? Well, they weren't, were they? All the money went to the banks. I think we should shut the Federal Reserve down, and I think we should do it quickly.